Hey, we're going to continue looking at classic X-Men and the continuing Dark Phoenix saga. I can't begin to explain how good of a story this really and truly is. It's one of those storylines where I think there's probably an element of it's been talked about so much and hyped up so much. Maybe sometimes people get sick of it and you get tired of hearing about it. The Phoenix and Jean Grey and the X-Men and all this stuff over and over and over. Even I have that struggle. I mean, I look at the comics these days and like Cyclops has the Phoenix power, or Wolverine has some version of the Phoenix power, or Jean Grey's got it again. They just keep coming back to these storylines over and over. And I get that it kind of dilutes the interesting elements of the original story when they come out in real time. Now, I was not there to read it when they were originally published, but I did get to read it in kind of like a monthly basis in real time for me in this classic X-Men, which is reprinting the X-Men books. It's not the issues that they were originally put in. It's just a reprinting with new covers and new backup stories. In the back of the book, they have like additional supplemental stories, because these sections of these books are only like 17 pages long, and I've talked about this in my other reviews of the previous issues. It's shocking to me how well Chris Claremont with John Byrne can tell so much story in so few pages. It's amazing the amount of work that they can do. And so we're just going to continue with the Dark Phoenix saga. I've got the previous issues on the channel. You can check them out. And but we're starting here where the X-Men have just gone through some rough times, and they're trying to find a way to get away and pause and stop and relocate and kind of just set themselves up again for the coming battles, and do it away from enemy eyes. They're trying to just get in hiding so they can just kind of regroup and refocus. So they go to this home of Angel, one of the founding members of the team. He's always been kind of closely associated with them, and they decide to go here. And so he's dropping in his crazy awesome 80s attire. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's kind of awesome because that's just the style of the time. And I'm sure at the time in the book, no one thought otherwise. But here it looks kind of silly. Like these super high socks and these ridiculous short shorts, the headband. It's just kind of silly. Anyway, just to make sure I point out, this is printed in October of '99. Claremont co-plotter and scripter, John Byrne co-plotter. So that's not anything that I was actually really had paid attention to, the fact that John Byrne was actively involved in the creation of the story on some level, which shouldn't surprise me. Terry Austin on inks, of course. His stuff looks so good. I can't remember if I've mentioned it. I probably have. But I do talk about often how these old newsprint issues have this kind of look and style with the old paper, and the way this newsprint just kind of absorbs the ink, and the way that it kind of comes across on these pages. It looks so damn good. But I find myself often going and doing a Google search to look up the original artwork from these pages in the black and white. And man, are they so crisp and clear and clean and detailed. So much of that detail is lost in this printing. And yet it still looks fantastic in its own kind of nostalgic, awesome way of this book being printed on this newsprint. It's both kind of interesting how it looks great. There's a certain look and a vibe and a feel on these things that I wouldn't trade for anything. But then also, you know, if you look at the original black and white artwork, it's so crisp and it's just looks so amazing. It's shocking how much is lost. So anyway, that's just a random point I wanted to bring up, because every time I look at these things, I'm just like, God, these look good. But so does the original artwork. And it's kind of a balance of, you like the printed colored work, but you also want to see the crisp, beautiful artwork in its full detail. Anyway, the team is here, and they decided to, like I said, they came to Angel's little mountain, you know, whatever mansion that he's got, because of course Angel is super wealthy. And it's talking about, the text here is how Angel hasn't seen much of the X-Men since he left the team, and he doesn't know this Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, and Wolverine very well at all. But they are, they're with Professor X, and they're part of the X-Men. So as far as he's concerned, they're basically family. Um, there was this kind of an interesting part here where Colossus is talking about this. The country is really beautiful, and Wolverine's like, "Man, this isn't nothing compared to the Canadian Rockies, and that's beautiful country." He's like, "Come on, Wolverine, you don't. It's not a contest." This is an interesting panel. Jean Grey and Warren Worthington Angel are part of the original team. And so they're old friends and they're seeing each other for the first time in a while. And the way this drawing is, like a friend straight up making out with her, kissing her on the lips right in front of Cyclops. I was talking about, I think it was the last issue I reviewed on this, where Cyclops was hanging out or he was hanging out with Jean Grey. They're at the God, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. I'm worried I'm confusing my stories in my head because I'm trying to remember what I've already reviewed, what I've read ahead, which parts I'm confusing. But yeah, Cyclops was in a place where they were trying to track down Dazzler, and then Mastermind was there, and he was putting the moves on Jean Grey as he's manipulating Jean Grey to kind of get her to join up on their side through no active knowledge of her own. And like he just steps in there and ends up kissing Jean Grey. Mastermind does, and Cyclops just watches. And I was like, Cyclops, man, grow a set of fucking testicles, dude. Like, you don't have to be a possessive dick, but this is your girl. She's 100% into you. Some dude doesn't walk up and start making with your girl, and you just sit back and like, anyway, well, we got some trouble to solve here. And yet Warren Worthington here is saying, you're not so bad yourself, Fred. And he's like, we keep this up, Gene, and we're liable to make Scott jealous. Like, Jesus fuck. Like, that's a very intimate kiss. It's not like a friendly kiss. Like, I can imagine really good friends, like if I was a friend, like I had a couple, and a male and a female couple, they're together, and I'm very good friends with both of them. The most I would imagine would ever happen in my universe is like you get a kiss on the cheek or something like that. That's a friendly thing. Straight up kissing on the lips is a little weird. And then Angel's doing it right in front of his own girlfriend. Her name is Candy Southern. I don't know who comes up with these names. Oh, wait, it's got to be Chris Claremont. He's got a weird... His approach to, like, sex in these comic books is sometimes a little strange. Anyway, I think we're dwelling on this too much, but when I was rereading this, I'm like, good Lord, dude, what the fuck is that? I mean, Cyclops must be an absolute moron. Anyway, he's like, hey, Angel, we got to talk. Can you get us out of here? We need someplace private to talk. And so Angel just grabs him and takes off. And Professor X is talking here how he's a little bit pissed off that Scott disobeyed his instructions by bringing them to this place instead of their New York headquarters. And then he flies off without a word of explanation. He's like, I'm supposed to be in charge here, but Cyclops is not listening to me, because there was some element where Professor X had been gone for a while. So Cyclops took charge of the team to great heights of success, and he's an extremely capable leader. He's kind of a loser as like a boyfriend. He needs to step up. Honestly, like the way he kind of did in that first X-Men movie. Remember when Hugh Jackman was kind of putting the moves on Jean Grey, and he's like, you're going to tell me to stay away from your girl? And he's like, well, if I had to do that, she wouldn't be my girl. And then he ends it with, hey, by the way, stay away from my girl. I'm like, Cyclops needs to grow some balls and step up. Anyway, so Angel takes Cyclops to this awesome like precipice of these mountains here, and he's like, well, this is as alone as we can get. What do you got on your mind? And Cyclops is saying, well, someone's after the X-Men. Angel's like, yeah, Everett, someone always is. He's like, this is different. And he just kind of does a recap of the previous issues, how the X-Men went to go find this girl, Kitty Pryde. They got in a battle. They were taken out. They went to go get Dazzler. They met her, ended up in another battle. Something's like, there's like a coordinated effort to get them. And then Jean Grey had like a powerful mind war against the White Queen. And he's like, these people that are after us are the Hellfire Club. And Angel's like, wait. I'm a member of the Hellfire Club. I kind of inherited it from my parents. I don't really go, but are you sure? And he's like, yeah, that's what's going on. Something is going on. It's Cyclops is just, there's some greater plan going on, and he doesn't understand what it is, and he's looking for advice. He's also saying, something's up with Jean. She's been acting odd. And just at that moment, she kind of flies up there. Hey, someone mentioned my name. You guys have been talking for hours. Time for a break. So interestingly enough, these couple of panels are supposed to equate hours of time, which, you know, it's an interesting way to kind of show the passage of time. But they've been up here talking for hours. And Jean Grey looks like she brought a lunch. So Angel's like, well, I suddenly feel like I'm not wanted here. And she's like, yeah, right, get lost. So they and Scott kind of plays it off like we were just talking about some other stuff. We totally weren't talking about you. So then Jean Grey, she's able to, like, with her powers, just change her clothes from her like hot, sexy Phoenix outfit to this little bikini thing. And Cyclops is shocked at what she's able to do. She's trying to get him to open up, and he's just like, I've got a lot on my mind. She's like, well, yeah, I know. It's time for a break. So let's not be Cyclops and Phoenix. Let's be, you know, Scott Summers and Jean Grey. You might even enjoy yourself. And she removes his visor, and he freaks out. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? If I open my eyes, my powers are uncontrollable. And she's saying, I can use my powers to keep your optic blast in check. I just want to see your face. And in his head, he's saying, I don't believe it. She can hold back my power. How can she do that? And she says, just, hey, no questions. You know, they're basically like, they're going to get it on, and she's done with business. It's time for pleasure. Again, I talk about this. I love these layouts, the panels, the colors. This is like beautiful, perfect comic books. I love it. I know I say this every time about these whenever I look at them. Every time I look at these things, I'm just shocked at how good they are. It just makes me realize how not good I am with my own artwork and the way I put it together, and how I need to strive harder and get better. That's a good thing. All this artists got to get better. Anyway, it says here, this is our moment, let's not waste it. And it says a week passes and the scene shifts to 2,000 miles from the New Mexico desert to the man-made canyons of Manhattan. This is a hell of a drawing, a little thin panel of the city in the rain. And then we go down into the sewers. The X-Men are deciding to creep up on the Hellfire Club. They're going to go infiltrate them. They know that the Hellfire Club is up to something, and so they're going to go find out what the hell is going on. So Wolverine and Nightcrawler are in the sewers, and Wolverine happens to notice that the water's rising from the rain, and there's some electrical wire. So he pops his claws and shreds off the sheathing on the wires here, saying that if the water rises, when the water rises high enough, it'll hit him, short him out, and it'll cut the power to the building. It says, if something goes wrong tonight, a surprise blackout could come in handy. I like that. He's kind of like a, you know what, I'm doing this. It's going to happen anyway, whether it needs it or not. I'm just going to set it up just in case. Let's just do it just in case. And Nightcrawler's like, very sneaky. Anyway, Nightcrawler's saying, hey, we're in position. So, you know, make your moves. So you got Cyclops, Jean Grey, Colossus, and Storm. They're all in, you know, costume. And they're going into, like I was saying, infiltrate the Hellfire Club and see what they can see and what's going on. So in Colossus is kind of thinking to himself, like, he grew up a poor man in Russia, and he's like, these clothes cost more than, you know, like his father earns in an entire year. He's kind of embarrassed to be wearing these clothes. But if you're going to go into the Hellfire Club, it's all about rich excess. So they go in here and they're trying to find out what they can see. What they don't know is that the Hellfire Club is ran by some of the most powerful mutants or villains in the entire X-Men universe that have not really been introduced to anybody. We don't really know who they are. And there is a conflict a-coming. The X-Men are unaware, but I mean, hell, they're all badasses, the X-Men. They're all super powerful. I mean, Storm can control the weather. Colossus is an armored giant. Cyclops' optic blasts are incredibly powerful, and he's a great, brilliant tactician. And Jean Grey is the fucking Phoenix. Like, what can't she do? So what should they be afraid of? But we see you've got, his name is Donald, excuse me, Donald Pierce. He's watching. He's like, hey, look, on the monitor. He's like, we can see. It's a surprise visit from Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Phoenix and Cyclops of the X-Men. They're like, they're showing up. We got a guy named Shaw, Leland, and Weingard. That's Mastermind. This is the guy who's been fucking with Jean Grey's mind over the past issues. And he's saying, Shaw is saying, Weingard, you've been boasting that Miss Grey is yours, body and soul. Tonight is your chance to prove it. She can lead the attack on the X-Men. And for your sake, I hope she succeeds. You kind of can't tell. We'll see it in a page coming up here, but Jean Grey's wearing this sexy-ass black dress with this, like, open cuts down the center on her chest. kind of risque, but it makes sense for the setting that they're in. It's a really good design. I think it looks really good. Anyway, Scott and Jean are trying to like blend in, so they're kind of thinking to each other. They're connected with Jean Grey's mental telepathy. They're just going to kind of scope things out. But of course, Mastermind steps in, cuts into the dance, and then suddenly, as has been happening, Jean Grey's mind is whisked away as if she's living in these olden times, and she doesn't realize what's going on. She's getting manipulated again. And Cyclops, he's like, he recognizes this guy, and he knows something's wrong, but he doesn't know what it is. And he's sitting here talking about, there's more than my feelings of jealousy. Again, he should just, now is not the time to throw a scene, you know, but Cyclops, dude, you got to step up. This is your girl, and she's clearly into you 100%. So if she's going off with this guy, something is wrong. Like, step up, man. And you're in the den of these bad guys. You have to know something's up. But again, you got to choose your moment in this scene. Anyway, he starts taking Jean Grey upstairs. Mastermind does. And Cyclops is like, wait, what the fuck? Hold on. And he's like, she's ignoring me. Here's a shot of that dress with that open front. It's pretty hot. But she's just kind of like tuned out. And so Mastermind, he drops his facade. He makes himself look like this handsome fella. But he's not. He's this old, disgusting scumball. So he drops the look, and Cyclops sees him, and he knows who it is. Mastermind. He's like, oh, shit, I know who you are. Cyclops chases him up the stairs. They go behind these locked doors, and so Cyclops tries to bust in the door, gets blasted out, and then here's Jean Grey, now dressed, I guess, in the blink of an eye, because she can do that with her powers, but she's dressed in the garb of like what the powerful women of the Hellfire Club wear. She's the Black Queen, where Emma Frost is the White Queen. And they're like, is he dead? And she's like, no, if I wanted him dead, there'd be nothing but ashes. Colossus and Storm hear something, so they jump up, and Colossus turns into his metal form, and apparently he just rips out of his suit. He's got his awesome superhero outfit on. And Storm jumps into the air and flies around, and she's just suddenly in her sexy ass superhero costume. Like, it doesn't even say how it happened, it just is. It's a superhero comic. Going up the stairs, and they run into this dude. And this is a funny thing. There's such a difference in the storytelling of comics back in the day versus today. This is like, basically, to my understanding, the first time we see this Sebastian Shaw. And he's here, and they're dressed in this old colonial era kind of garb, because that's the kind of the style of the Hellfire Club. But he's there, shirtless, and he's standing. And this is just a little teeny tiny panel. So I would think in like a modern comic, there would be some big full-page spread of him standing there looking tough. I think this works because it's this little tiny panel. You don't know what his powers are. What could he possibly have to stand against any of these X-Men? So it kind of lulls you as a reader into a false sense of security. This little tiny panel. Colossus walks up and decks him, and he's saying how he's got to pull his punch. He could kill a human man easily. So he pulls his punch just to kind of pop him on the chin. But then Shaw here just smacks him away with this massive amount of force, sends Colossus flying away. This is already 1,000 times more interesting than the Sebastian Shaw in that X-Men First Class movie, which I like. I think it's good, but Kevin Bacon ain't no, John Byrne drawn character. It's not even close to the same. It's not even remotely close. So Shaw dives at Colossus, and Colossus is thinking to himself, he's like, I've never been hit that hard in my life. So Colossus kicks him as hard as he can. It says here it would have shattered a tank. The guy takes it, and he kind of like, has it almost hurts him for a minute, but then he just rapid fire grabs Colossus's foot and throws him around like a rag doll, kind of even throwing him at Storm. And Shaw is saying, the more you hit me, the stronger I get. He absorbs like kinetic energy. So you punch him super hard like Colossus, suddenly Shaw is hyper strong and super fast. So how do you beat a guy you can't punch? Storm is flying around, so she lays down a fog to kind of hide and disguise everything. I love this panel where Storm is in like full regular view, this white in the background, and this kind of faded out version of Shaw hidden in it. It looks so good. Meanwhile, Nightcrawler and Wolverine are coming up through the floors, and I love the simplicity of this drawing right down here. Wolverine coming up. It's just like the color is just describing his mask besides the black pointy ear parts. and Nightcrawler's red. It's so interesting. I want to see the original artwork of this one and see what this panel looks like. But anyway, they get up there and they're saying, well, we can't be up there because we're not dressed in regular clothes and we're kind of hard to disguise, but we can sneak around and see what's going on. You see this hand hidden behind this pillar, and out comes that Donald Pierce guy, grabs Nightcrawler by the throat, and Nightcrawler's saying how he has to be able to focus and concentrate to teleport, but he can't. There's some kind of electrical charge going through him that's preventing him from teleporting. That's how Nightcrawler would normally get out. Wolverine just shows up and just chops at this guy's arm, and it reveals he's like a robot under there. And Donald Pierce is pissed off. So being a robot, he grabs Wolverine and tosses him aside like a rag doll once again. And Wolverine's like, all right, good, you're a robot. He's like, I almost became one, but you know what? I'm going to chop you up. He's like, I'm not worried about it, robot man. I'm going to cut you to pieces. Then comes this guy Leland, Harry Leland, the big fat guy. And Wolverine's like, man, fat man, I ain't afraid of you. And he's like, oh, really? Yeah, your challenge is accepted. Like, so Wolverine suddenly he's like, I'm getting heavy. I can't move. My foot is stuck. I can't move. What the hell is going on? This Leland guy says that he can affect mass. He can increase your mass. And he's like concentrating and making the mass of Wolverine just several tons higher, and suddenly Wolverine just falls through the floor, crack, 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 splash down, right back into the sewers, and is swept away in this rapid fire sea of water and sludge from the rain that's going on outside. He's swept away, taken care of, out of the scene. Meanwhile, it's weird how she's flying around inside this building. I don't think this would translate into a movie very well with her flying around, but in a comic book it does. It works. Shaw suddenly shows back up again, grabs her by the ankle. She kicks him in the face. And again, he's super fast. He's telling her, he's giving her the opportunity, like, girl, you need to surrender. You are not going to defeat us. And she's not doing it. So now he's pissed. So he flips her around, throws her to the ground, and bashes her skull in, and she's knocked out, and he's just dragging her body behind her. I love all the artwork on this scene right here. It is so goddamn well done. It's just shocking how beautiful this artwork is. I hope everyone else sees this and kind of understands. It's one of those things I can't explain. It just looks so fantastic. And Shaw is like, man, this was awesome. I need to do this more. I haven't used my mutant ability in a long time. I've forgotten how good it feels. So we show back up into the scene with all the others, and they've got all the X-Men. They've got Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Colossus on the ground. Wolverine's washed away. He's got Storm. He tosses her down onto the ground. And they're like, yeah, we beat them easily. And we didn't even need Jean Grey. Like, she showed up and she was there and she took out Cyclops. But these guys are all so powerful. These mutants that run the Hellfire Club are so good. They took out the X-Men in their prime, experienced, badass version selves and took him out super easily. The X-Men were not prepared for this. Again, he tosses Storm down. He's just smiling and cackling. But he's thinking to himself about how Weingard, he's like, he can tell. Shaw is sure that Weingard here, Mastermind, is trying to gain control of the Hellfire Club, and he thinks that he can because he controls Phoenix. And so Shaw's like, I got to keep my eye out on this. And they're bickering back and forth a little bit, but the other guy's like, hey, can you guys stop fighting? We just won. We defeated the X-Men, and we have the Black Queen in the Hellfire Club. We have Jean Grey on our side. We're badasses. Meanwhile, in the sewer, one of the coolest scenes of Wolverine ever. I don't know if Wolverine ever had a badass moment like this in these comics before this. I wonder if this is like a moment leading up to Wolverine becoming the badass, scary warrior, awesome character that he became so much that it's become almost a joke at this point. I don't know how much people thought of Wolverine as an ultra badass before this, but it is so great. Through the sewers, his hand reaches up and grabs onto a pipe. He pulls himself up and he says, okay, suckers, you've taken your best shot. Now it's my turn. Claws popped and it says Wolverine alone. Holy shit, is this got to be exciting. I like the X-Men back in the day when it wasn't all Wolverine-centric. He became super popular and he became such a big focus, and it can be okay, but I like the X-Men better when there's, you got Cyclops, Professor X, they're the leaders, but every character has their moment to shine, and Wolverine is given his moment here. And for me, this was the first time I was like, holy shit, this is going to be awesome, because this is 1989, so I'm 12 years old. I'm just beginning to read these X-Men books. What a great cap to this story. This is like iconic in kind of like X-Men world. And again, page 17, and the story is over. So much story crammed into 17 little pages. It's amazing, and I think it's so beautiful. Now, the follow-up story, it is a story written by Ann Nocenti, artist Kyle Baker. I know the name, but I don't know anything about him. It's just kind of odd little thing. Like in the last issue, we were introduced to Dazzler, and that's who this is. And it's this kind of like artistically driven scene of fear and horror. She's like a single woman in an elevator by herself with this big, creepy looking guy. And she's just constantly freaked out. She's thinking to herself, like, he's quiet. He's not doing anything. He reaches way too close to her. Oh, he just turns the lever to activate the elevator because he runs the elevator. But he's just staring at her. She's like, I can feel him staring at me. And then she tries to look at him and he looks away. Something's not right. Something is creepy. Something is weird. Then the lights go out and he's speaking to her, and suddenly the lights come back on. He's just standing right behind her. He's like, I'm the elevator man. I'm running the lift. And she's freaked out. And then the doors open. She's going to go to her car, but he starts following her. But then a car is coming almost to run him down. So he pushes her out of the way. But then he handcuffs her to a pole. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? She's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I'm sorry, ma'am. It's just a little joke. Don't be scared. It's boring around here. I'm just a little bit of a joke. He's like, no harm done. He's like, oh, wait, shoot. I left the key. Shoot, I'll go get the key. And she's like, you what? And so now she's pissed. So Dazzler, she uses her powers to zap the handcuffs off her. She goes chasing after him, catches up with him. She gets into a car and turns up the radio because her powers are based on converting sound into light. And suddenly she's pissed off. The music pumps up her powers, bright energy. He's scared. He's running. He's freaking out. He's like, please stop. What's going on? Stop. So this is all artistically very interesting. It's very oddly drawn, but very competently drawn. Very simple line work art. Very good stuff. And she's like, I'm Dazzler. What the fuck are you doing trying to scare me to death? He says, the elevator thing is just a part-time job. His love is filmmaking. He's a filmmaker. He's like, I'm obsessed with fear. And he's like, this is a very scary place. And so I just wanted to study fear up close for my next film. So he's trying to intentionally scare her just to study what fear is like, to put it into a film. He's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah, you think you understand fear now? He's like, yeah, I do. And then that's the end of the story. What a weird fucking story to throw in the back of this. It's like they needed to pad the book because at the time, I guess 17 pages wasn't enough for what they would think modern audiences would want for a comic. And I kind of agree. And a lot of these backup stories are fantastic. This one's fine. It's interesting. It's just really weird. The backup story in the next issue of this, probably the best one because Jim Lee drew it. And it's probably the first time I ever saw Jim Lee's artwork. We'll get to that shortly. Anyway, just some ads for comics coming up. But there it is. Once again, these issues of these classic X-Men, the Dark Phoenix saga, Claremont, Byrne, Terry Austin, they're just amazing how good they are. It's shocking to me how well the story is told. Even if there's little blips here, kind of there's some dated things or some characterization that maybe could be done better. But my God, could you imagine a properly done X-Men movie with the characters that are introduced and built up, and then eventually the Dark Phoenix saga? Like, there should be like 2 or 3 X-Men movies and then have a trilogy of Dark Phoenix saga building up to the whole story of what happens to her, where it goes, and how it ends. Because you can't just do the Dark Phoenix saga in a movie in like the first movie, the first one. They've blown it twice now, and it's fucking ridiculous. The greatest X-Men story ever told, and it's so easy. Just follow the comics, for God's sakes. But they blew it horrifically twice. And these are so good. It's such a beautiful template. It's stupid. Anyway, the comics are amazing. The art is amazing. I love them, and I can't wait to keep going through them. And I hope you guys enjoy them as much as I do. So anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.